He's a best-selling author and the host of one of the most listened-to talk shows in the country. Mark Levin shares how we can rediscover Americanism. Plus, a former quarterback begins a second career on the airwaves.
God used one of my vulnerabilities as a player to really be an asset in my future career.
Then, an arsonist is on the loose.
My heart just stopped.
And the man setting the fires was their son.
Paul, you don't have a clue what you've done.
Their story on today's 700 Club.
Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of the 700 Club. Isn't it amazing how the media doesn't pay attention? It really is remarkable that these reporters get paid to listen. They don't listen. They have their own agenda. Now, the president likes to speculate. He likes to have a stream of consciousness, and he likes to talk. And one of the things he was saying was a certain truth, that the president of the United States has unlimited pardon power for somebody who has been incarcerated or convicted of a crime. The president can pardon him. So he just wanted to state that fact. As he was musing, then the media immediately jumped on the fact, well, he must be considering pardoning somebody. He wasn't considering pardoning anybody. He was just merely saying how much powerful he was. And the reason he can say that is, if you can pardon somebody, there's no way you can obstruct justice in a trial that will bring somebody to a point where they would be convicted of a crime that he could pardon. So the old idea about a special prosecutor to see if he is obstructing justice is nonsense. The President of the United States cannot obstruct justice in a trial that he's responsible for. But anyhow, even though the news media is obsessed with Russian interference, President Trump says the real crime has been the leaks coming from inside the government. And we understand that Anthony Scaramucci is saying, I'm going to shut the leaks. You remember? But everybody's been looking to plug the leaks. We talked about the plumbers way back in the Nixon days. And people just like to talk, and they think that they're hot shots. And so it's so easy to go into a cocktail party in Georgetown and say, I've got the latest word, here it is. And all of a sudden the media picks it up, and there's state secrets get revealed. Well, the American people are frankly much more interested in taxes and in their health care. And here is Wendy.
Thank you, Pat. Well, 3 members of the president's inner circle will answer questions on Capitol Hill this week. And the president's team is making it clear Trump doesn't plan to pardon anyone because no one on his campaign did anything wrong. Jenna Browder has the story from Washington.
As the Russia investigation picks up steam, there are new questions about President Trump's authority to pardon, something he tweeted about over the weekend. All agree the U.S. president has the complete power to pardon. There is some debate about this, but regardless, the president's legal team says it's not something they're looking into or need to look into.
We're not researching the issue because the issue of pardons is not on the table. There's nothing to pardon from.
In that same tweet, Trump asked why anyone should think of pardoning when the only crime so far is leaks against us. Fake news. And the president's new communications director says he's going to crack down on those leaks.
It's a new start for everybody in that team, and everybody in that team can stay as long as they follow the protocol of not leaking. Because at the end of the day, the president's super upset about the leaks. It's unprofessional. And so you're asking me what the first steps are. That's going to be one of my first steps.
This was Anthony Scaramucci's first go-around on the Sunday political shows. His hiring comes as Press Secretary Sean Spicer, whose last interview was with CBN's own online political show, Faith Nation, steps down.
They're missing a lot of things, Jenna. I mean, when you talk about health care and education, tax reform, as you just mentioned.
The White House says there's a major contrast between what the media is concentrating on and what the public is interested in.
The top 3 issues that Americans care about are immigration, health care, and jobs. The top 3 issues that the media cares about are Russia, Russia, and Russia.
Tweets and staff shakeups aside, the White House says it's not focused on Russia. It's hoping to deliver on key issues like health care and tax reform, things it says Americans really care about. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Thanks, Jenna. You know, this new communications team is terrific. Scaramucci is a real pro. a brilliant man and a very rich man. He's been a hedge fund manager and has done exceptionally well. It cost him a lot to take on this job. He must be quite a financial sacrifice. But there was no media head in the White House. They didn't have a communications director. They had sports spokespeople and press people, but they didn't have an overall communication. He is taking that job, and apparently Sean Spicer, who's gotten to be quite a friend of ours, decided that he didn't want to go into a new regime and that it would be better to have a new team. So they put the daughter of Mike Huckabee, who seems to be making quite a name for herself, in the job of press spokesman or spokeswoman. And I think the team is really tightened up and better, and the president will be well served by that. But everybody, I mean, the media's been after him. You look at the numbers of negative stories, it's just one a day, and there are leaks one a day, every day. Somebody's leaking something. And we just can't have that in our country. We cannot have people who are being paid to serve a person actually trying to undermine the nation and undermine the president. We can't have it. Well, in other news, President Trump's envoy, Jason Greenblatt, has arrived in Israel. He's working as a part of an international effort to resolve the crisis between Israelis and Palestinians over the Temple Mount. John Jessup has that.
Well, Pat, the current conflict between the Palestinians and Israelis shows little signs of dying down. And as Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, some worry it could hold the seeds of a new Palestinian uprising.
After a day of rioting on Friday, 3 brutal murders Friday night, and a terror attack at the Israeli embassy in Jordan on Sunday, the controversy over security measures at the Temple Mount began its second week. 50 years ago, Israeli paratroopers came through this gate, the Lion's Gate, and captured Jerusalem for the first time in more than 2,000 years. Now it's the epicenter of the current controversy. On July 14th, 3 Israeli Arabs went up on the Temple Mount and then inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque to get automatic weapons. Then they came and murdered 2 Israeli policemen not far from here. To prevent this from happening again, Israel installed these metal detectors just outside the entrance of the Temple Mount. Israeli officials point out security measures are standard practice all over the world, even in Mecca in Saudi Arabia. But Islamic officials who administer the Temple Mount protested, and Palestinian Authority officials called for escalation.
We are moving towards an escalation. The Israelis are moving towards an escalation, and we have no problem on our part that there will be an escalation from the Palestinian side.
Historically, the Palestinian Authority has used any Israeli activity at the Al-Aqsa Mosque as a trigger to promote violence.
Itamar Marcus of the Palestinian Media Watch says the Palestinian objection to the metal detectors isn't about security.
The metal detectors are an issue of who is the person in charge of the Temple Mount.
At Friday prayers, Palestinians chanted, "With spirit and blood, we will redeem Al-Aqsa." Friday night, 19-year-old Palestinian Omar Al-Abed took up that call. On his Facebook page, he posted, "They are desecrating the Aqsa Mosque, and we are sleeping. It is an embarrassment that we sit and do nothing. All I have is a sharpened knife, and it will answer the call of Al-Aqsa." Abed then entered the home of 70-year-old Yosef Salomon in the Jewish community of Halamish and killed him and his 2 grown children. Marcus sees a direct link to Palestinian incitement.
I'm holding the Palestinian Authority leadership directly responsible for those murders and any subsequent terror that we have because the Palestinian Authority population gets their cues from their leadership.
5 decades after Israeli Matagor said the Temple Mount is in our hands, many believe the issue of the Temple Mount remains the most contentious in the Middle East. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Lion's Gate, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. Pat, back to you.
The myth that the Palestinians hang to and the general Arabs was that there was a night ride that Muhammad rode his horse into the heavens, and on the way he stopped by the farthest place, which was Al-Aqsa, to the farthest place, and his horse touched one hoof down on that soil and then sprang back up into heaven. Now, that's their myth. his wife, that young lady that he married when she was about 8 years old, Aisha, said, well, some people think he went to heaven, but he was lying in bed beside me all night long. So the myth remains. But now they're going to fight and kill for the sanctity of this this one mosque. Now the thing is, that is under Israeli sovereignty and needs to maintain that and continue that. And the Israelis have an absolute right to set up security measures like all the airports in the world and other hotspots. They put in metal detectors. There's nothing unusual about it that somebody going through wouldn't have a gun or a knife that would harm people. And that's all they're trying to do, is to make sure the Temple Mount stays safe. But, I mean, Yasser Arafat called for an intifada. That means shaking in the vernacular. And he wanted a shaking to shake, and they used any provocation in order to start a riot, or start a revolution, start a war. And we've got to resist that, and we have to have our eyes open and not be sucked in by the false rhetoric that comes out of some of these extremists. John, what's next?
Pat, back here at home, the driver of a truck in which 8 illegal immigrants died is set to appear in court today. Authorities found the bodies inside a tractor trailer at a Walmart lot in San Antonio Sunday morning after they perished in the intense Texas heat. Another person later died at the hospital.
We utilize helicopters to fly patients out. We utilize at least 7 area hospitals to transport these people out.
The South Texas heat is punishing this time of year. These people were helpless in the hands of their transporters.
We're looking at a human trafficking crime.
The driver and possibly others will face state and federal charges. Pat, this is just tragic.
I think there's no charge too harsh for people who would do this thing. Imagine getting innocent people who paid probably exorbitant sums for the privilege of coming to freedom, and they're locked up in a truck, 100 degrees, no water, no medical supplies, no food, in sweltering heat, and they're screaming and begging for help, just a drop of water, and the traffickers leave the thing locked until a number of them die. There is just no punishment too hard for people like that. It's just outrageous how they treat these people as objects, as human cargo, and human trafficking has got to stop, and we need to do everything we can to stop it. Well, John, let's continue.
Pat, the Navy commissioned the most advanced and most expensive carrier to its fleet, the USS Gerald Ford. President Trump attended the commissioning in Norfolk Saturday, where he thanked those who built it and the sailors who will eventually call it home. National security correspondent Eric Rosales brings us that story.
I hereby place United States ship Gerald R. Ford in commission.
With that, the U.S. Navy got its first new class of carriers in more than 40 years, the Ford, whose motto reads integrity at the helm.
America might is second to none, and we're getting bigger and better and stronger every day of my administration.
Standing on the deck, President Donald Trump assured top Navy brass and sailors it's only the beginning.
That is why we reached a deal to secure an additional $20 billion for defense this year, and it's going up, and why I asked Congress for another $54 billion for next year.
That is, according to the president, if Congress does its job and pass the budget. The USS Ford is designed with significant quality of life improvements and reduced maintenance. At a cost of $12.9 billion, it's the most advanced ever built.
Today, a magnificent warship joins the best Navy in the world. And it's named after a tried and true member of the greatest generation, and that spirit will permeate this ship.
You don't get an idea of how large this ship is until you stand on its flight deck. It's 1,092 feet long. To put that into perspective, that's more than 3.5 football fields. It's driven by 2 nuclear reactors, which can each produce up to 300 megawatts of electricity. Along with that power comes great firepower. 4 Sea Whiz anti-missile guns surround the ship, which can pump out more than 1,000 rounds a minute. Although it weighs 90,000 tons, thanks to its newly designed hull, it's also the most efficient and fastest carrier around. Top speed, 30+ knots, which is around 35 miles an hour. Counting the ship's crew and its air wing support, some 4,500 sailors will call her home.
Officers and crew of the United States Gerald R. Ford, man our ship and bring her to life.
For the ship's sponsor, Susan Ford Bales, the daughter of the 38th president, it was a day filled with excitement.
One thing's for sure with this ship, and as you heard President Trump with many more to come, they should provide the United States with the upper hand in 21st century naval warfare. Eric Rosales, CBN News, Norfolk, Virginia.
And Pat, President Trump called this the new symbol of American military power.
Well, it's a huge, huge investment, and some might say it's a huge boondoggle. You know, when you think of the amount of money that's spent for one ship and think what it could be done for humanitarian causes around the world, you know, the lobbying is obviously for defense, huge ships, but maybe the warfare of the future is going to be cyber warfare, and it's going to be small engagements, and there might not be as big a place for fixed battles as we used to have in World War II. So we'll see if that's nice. But I tell you, for putting all the people to work, and it was made in Virginia by Virginians, a lot of people got employed because of it. But that is one bodacious amount of money for one piece of floating armament in the water.
3 football fields long. Yeah. That's incredible.
For all that money,
yeah.
Dear me, almost.
But it sure is nice to have a president who's excited about building up our military.
Well, we've got to have at least 50 ships in the Navy, and they're down to a little over 200, and some of them are lacking parts. So we do have to, we have to spend to get strong, but we are the strongest on earth, and we want to stay that way.
Amen. That's right. Well, coming up, a wake-up call from one of conservatism's leading minds.
We do not engage in the battle of ideas, not so much against elites, but elitism. We're going to lose because most societies are formed by the elites, by the intellectuals, by the academics, whether we like it or not.
Radio host Mark Levin shares why it's so important to rediscover Americanism. Next.
Well, our excellent reporter, who you have seen, David Brody, has started something new called, what do we call it, Faith Nation. And it's very popular. He had Sean Spicer, his last appearance before the cameras, came on David's program. And he's also got a very interesting gentleman named Mark Levin, who wants Americans to understand the concepts that this country is based on compared to the ideas of progressives and liberals who are trying to change our country radically. David Brody recently sat down with Levin to talk about his best-selling book called Rediscovering Americanism. Here they are.
As the Patriot, Mel Gibson may have played the movie role, but national author, TV, and radio personality Mark Levin wants to bring that persona to the modern-day world via the airwaves.
This is Levin TV. I'm Mark Levin, where we are not fair and balanced. We are 100% pro-American and patriots here.
His new book, Rediscovering Americanism, provides to Americans clues to this country's structural founding and the progressive philosophy trying to fundamentally destroy it.
People are curious about their country. They're curious about its founding. They're curious about liberty. They don't hear a lot about it. You turn on TV, never hear about it. The culture never discusses it.
Levin rights that wrong by going deeper into the writings of top liberal philosophers and thinkers in order to reveal their true agenda.
The early progressives, like Wilson and Crowley and these fellows, they relied on philosophers like Marx and Hegel and Rousseau, all of whom reject the notion of the laws of nature and nature's God. Now that phrase, those phrases, are in our Declaration of Independence. They're not even taught in most public schools. They're certainly not taught in universities and colleges. Yet that goes to the core of our founding.
Levin says rejecting natural law means progressives reject a vital part of civil society.
There are universal laws. There are universal eternal truths, right and wrong, good and evil, a moral order. People are to be virtuous and prudential and be temperate and so forth and so on. And what does it mean, universal truths? Well, these God-given universal truths. Man can't make them, man can't take them away, whether it's in the form of a legislature, or a dictator, or a vote of your community.
Levin points out President Woodrow Wilson as one of the biggest offenders who espoused a progressive doctrine before taking over as commander-in-chief.
Woodrow Wilson relentlessly attacked separation of powers. He relentlessly attacked the principles of the Declaration. He dismissed them. He dismissed the Declaration as a revolutionary document by pioneers that have nothing to do with a modern and complex society, as he had to be a progressive.
Levin says progressives believe rewriting American history will allow them to create a monster government where the state and individual become one. In other words, a world where elites know best, not you.
Let me ask you a question about that. With this massive administrative state, how are these people experts? They're part of the civil service. They're part of a public sector union. Some of them have their jobs because of seniority. Some of them have them because of affirmative action. Is it based on training? Is it based on Ivy League schools? Is it based on experience? So the whole myth that government's filled with these experts who are noble, who are going to find, who are going to improve healthcare and education and so forth, it's been a myth. It's been a lie from day one, from their philosophers to their thinkers to their current politicians like Bernie Sanders.
Levin says elitism leads to government-created rights never intended by our founders.
Our colonists didn't fight a revolution for health care and food and shelter. They figured, we'll take care of that. We want our liberty. We want our freedom. We do not engage in the battle of ideas, not so much against elites, but elitism. We're going to lose because most societies are formed by the elites, by the intellectuals, by the academics, whether we like it or not.
You could say this book issues a dire warning: rediscover Americanism or risk losing our country's reason for being. Another example of Levin seeking to play the role of patriot, or possibly that of modern-day founding father, if there were such a thing. Have you ever thought about going back in time to a certain period in history where you might,
yes.
I had a feeling you might have thought about that. What period of history would have that been?
I would have loved to have been a delegate at the Constitutional Convention. And sometimes I think to myself, I was born at the wrong time. I really do. That the birth of a nation, to have an impact at the birth of a nation, not that I would have done any better, but just to participate in that, I can't think of anything other than family. I can't think of anything more glorious. And so I think that would be it.
What about being a truth teller today, though?
History will judge.
Judging by the bestseller lists, Mark Levin is clearly making a difference. A modern-day patriot, using pen, microphone, and today's media as his weapons to keep the dream of America's founders alive. David Brody, CBN News.
Interesting guy, isn't he? It's interesting.
Interesting that he, I could see how exciting that would be to be at the birth of a nation. That's pretty cool.
Well,
answer.
It's like we say, if I could only have lived when Jesus was on the earth, but if we were there, we wouldn't have believed in him. Here, this guy from this hillbilly from up in Galilee, who would have believed him? An itinerant preacher.
And the Bible says that God has appointed the times and the places that we are to live. So however old you are, wherever you live, that was all designed by God.
Well, I tell you what, we're living in the most exciting days. I mean, the founding of this country would have been great, but this is the greatest time in history. There's never been a time like this. One of the greatest revivals in human history is taking place all over the world. It is a fabulous time of foment, and so if you want to make your mark, this is the time to do it. And I'm hoping to put a footprint in the sands of time, as they say, and see what we can do. Well, the name of the book is Rediscovering Americanism, and I think most of you would like to get it. This guy's fascinating, and you can buy that wherever books are sold. Here's one.
I think, Pat, your footprint's going to be pretty big. It's going to be pretty big.
We'll see.
All right. Well, coming up, he went from leading Seattle's offense to co-hosting a radio show on its airwaves. But don't call him a diehard fan.
We can be passionate. We should be passionate. But if you're obsessed, you better check yourself.
We'll talk with sports radio host and ESPN analyst Brock Howard next.
Sports fans, thousands cheered for Brock Ward when he was the quarterback for the Washington Huskies and later the Seattle Seahawks. Now, those fans and many more listen to him every morning on ESPN Radio 710. Recently, Brock sat down with CBN's Tom Buehring, and the two talked about how sports can bring a city together. But it shouldn't be the only thing that does.
Well, welcome to Seattle in a typical morning rush hour heading in downtown. Frustrating for all of us, but if you're a morning radio show host, you got a captive audience. We're going to go in and talk with one. Brock Huard, former NFL quarterback and host of Sports Talk Radio.
Now, here's Brock and Saw.
Your experience as a quarterback of the Washington Huskies, the Seahawks, the Colts.
What was the best thing it drew out of you?
Yeah, I think college football, professional football, from the positive end, the ability to connect with people. And I'm in a media business where my job is to connect with an audience, with fans, with coaches. The NFL and college, looking back, and the foundation it laid is the ability to really connect with others.
Brock, it's huge news what's happening in sports here, all in Seattle.
With your psychology degree, how often do you rely on that?
My greatest weakness as a player was overthinking. Is so much of what's going on between our ears. It was one of my great challenges as a player to turn that off. I think it's one of the assets doing the job I do. That curiosity to overanalyze, it's what sports radio is about. So yeah, God used one of my vulnerabilities as a player and my hardwiring to really be an asset and a strength of mine in my future career.
All right, Dr. Huard, what fuels Sports Talk Radio?
Relationship. I was paired 8 years ago with someone that couldn't be any more different in every way. And the two of us had to find relationship and make it work. So what fuels sports radio for me is a relationship. The relationship with my co-host, my producers, with an audience, with the doors that open when I'm pumping gas and a complete stranger comes up and says, "How's Titus doing?" My 7-year-old son. I don't know them, but they have relationship with me through the medium of sports radio.
What do you think audiences want from you?
Authenticity. That's what they want. They want it to be real. And in 8 years, we have never pre-programmed takes. I'll try to argue this side and you be the contrarian on that side. So we find things that we authentically are passionate about, we feel strongly about, and we dig into those conversations. I don't think there's any way you can cover the Mariners and the Seahawks and the Huskies and the trials and tribulations that they go through without natural back and forth and tension in our differences.
They're quick to anger.
Okay.
Yeah, they've got a bit of a temperament. I don't think he's burned the bridges quite the same way.
Brock, what makes the Seattle fan base unique?
It's a really educated fan base. You've got an IT world that's blowing up, a uniquely diversified population. That Seattle market, you better be on point because they'll call your bluff if you're not.
The local team wins. It unites a state, let alone a city.
Yeah.
How genuine can that sense of community be?
Great question. And it's tested when you lose, not when you win. And rolling through 2012 and into 2013 in the Super Bowl and back to 2014, it was unbelievable. There was a mania. There's very few things from a community that bring a civic sense on the same page together. But when a little adversity hits, we do realize how strong or how disingenuous those connection points can be in that level of fandom.
There's always going to be a draw, though. As long as sports continues to be
an idol. I was just chatting with one of my kids about this. I said, isn't it amazing we read these Old Testaments and we're like, man, what were they thinking? How are you following some pole? How can you build up some set of rocks? And you look at the idols that they had and then you realize, like, how can you just paint your faces and get tattoos and you schedule all your life around these 8 Sundays or these 6 Saturdays? It's everything in your life. Like, where's that line that you're walking between something that you love and you're passionate about, which is awesome, and where it becomes an idol?
You travel nationally as a football game analyst for ESPN. You see the extremes of a fan commitment.
How much is too much? Where does it fit?
So where is the line between obsession and passion? And again, I think all of us need men in our lives that are walking alongside of us to check us and to question it. Does it come before your wife? Is it coming before your kids? Is it coming before your church? Is it becoming before your Savior? Then your relationship in that faith with your Savior and your Maker first. Your family better be second, because they endure. The game won't, the players won't, the teams won't, the sport won't. We can be passionate, and we should be passionate, but if you're obsessed, you better check yourself.
Well, this is a city we love, huh?
Absolutely. Gotta tell you, I also love how you intersect faith and sports to impact another demographic.
You're catching audiences at a time of contemplation with a podcast.
I'm thankful and privileged that my Bonneville, my work has opened this door, and that people can be driving and tune into it. Man, has God placed amazing people with amazing stories that have shaped my life, and that's what Above and Beyond is aiming to do.
Who is Jesus Christ to Brock Hewitt?
Yeah, he's everything. Yeah, he's everything. Because without relationship with him, talking about connection and genuine and authentic in relationship, and without him, none of it's real. It doesn't take tragedy to always bring that out. It doesn't take sports to always bring that out. It takes that trust to bring that out. Without his authenticity, without his life, without his blood, without his saving grace, without him, there really isn't genuine relationship.
Yeah, isn't it nice to find a sports hero that's got his priorities right? And, you know, the truth is, I mean, how long do you get to play football? They used to laugh about NFL, but not for long. And you get at most 6 years, 7 years, a lot of people 2 or 3 years, then it's all over. So, I don't care what sport it is, whether it's golf or tennis or whatever, by the time somebody's in their late 30s, they're considered old. So what happens after then? You got 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, and then you've got eternity. And what happens then? I mean, that's what people have to face, is eternity goes on forever. And better have your priorities ordered in relation to eternity, not in relation to winning a ball game or winning a bet or winning the stock market or winning the lottery. Wendy.
All right, well, still ahead. Their son was an arsonist, but they were the ones cleaning up the ashes.
Everybody just walked away.
All the while knowing that we did what was right.
Hear the rest of their story when we come back.
Welcome back to Washington for this CBN News break. A Wisconsin company is set to become the first in America to give its employees the opportunity to have microchip implants. The plan is voluntary and would allow employees to use the chips implanted in their hands to buy things in the break room, log into computers, open doors, and so on.
It's the next thing that's inevitably going to happen, and we want to be a part of it.
The company, 3 Square Market, is paying for the chips, emphasizing the chips will not include GPS that would allow it to track employees. Well, CBN in Vietnam is ministering to people in the Southeast Asian nation by delivering clean water. In just 1 month, CBN successfully dedicated 17 wells to communities across South Vietnam. They were installed in 6 different villages and helped more than 2,000 people. As a result of the gift, 69 people gave their lives to Jesus Christ. Well, you can find out more about what CBN is doing around the world by going to cbn.com/international. Pat and Wendy will be back right after this.
In 1995, a movie aired starring Neil Patrick Harris. It was called Not Our Son, and it was about a serial arsonist terrorizing a state and a father who knew he had to go to the police. For George and Margaret Keller, that movie was more than just a made-for-TV drama. It was the true story of their life.
In the summer of 1992, an arsonist began setting fires across Washington state. For 6 months, more than 120 buildings were destroyed, leading to 3 deaths and over $17 million in property damage. Authorities asked the public for help finding the arsonist. The Kellers remember it well.
The first thing that captured my attention were the 3 pencil sketches. And I looked and I said, that looks like my son Paul, and my heart just stopped.
Paul, you don't have a clue what you've done.
As Christians, George and Margaret knew what they had to do.
No loving father is going to want to even believe that his child is capable of crimes, much less something that is so horrendous. But this is the truth. The Lord gave me the strength at that moment to go and contact the arson task force, which I did.
Paul was arrested, pled guilty, and was sentenced to 99 years in prison without parole. For George and Margaret, it became the beginning of a different kind of sentence.
I would think giving up your son, which was real, would merit support instead of abandonment. But then the first person that left us was our pastor at that time.
Everybody just walked away. And I still don't get that.
For the next 3 years, George and Margaret plummeted into financial despair when their marketing business collapsed.
All my business clients just went away, and I began to just sink. We lost the home, we lost our savings, ending up on welfare, going through bankruptcy and devastation, all the while knowing that we did what was right.
They also struggled emotionally.
I felt like a dark depression just settling down, the kind that's debilitating.
Depression, severe anxiety, post-traumatic stress, all those things were going on. I was just a wreck because it was hell. And I did ask the Lord many times to take me home. Please, Lord, this is enough. Take me.
For a time, they got help through Christian counseling and prescription medication, but it wasn't enough. So the Kellers continued to pray and clung to their faith.
In the middle of the darkness, my anchor of faith in the Lord Jesus held. I was being strengthened to just live another day and another day and another day.
My prayer was, Lord, I don't know if you're going to bring me out of this or not. But if I am ever well from this, and you could ever use this to just help one person, then as much as I don't want to, I'm willing to stay.
One morning, Margaret woke up feeling different.
The depression's gone, the anxiety is gone, the feeling of being so traumatized is gone. All those conditions that I had had were replaced with total joy, and I had such a freedom. And it was a healing, it was a gift from the Lord.
I reached a tipping point when I was able to look in the mirror and said, I'm not depressed anymore. And that was very significant to me. And since then, I have not experienced what I would call being a depressed person.
Over time, they stabilized financially and also found community with people who welcomed them with open arms.
Christian folks who I have met through the years, who are more loving and tender than any family that I could ever know, standing with us in prayer all this way.
Today, Paul continues to serve his sentence, while George and Margaret run their own ministry and share their story of overcoming grief everywhere they go.
I believe I love Jesus more through all this.
Jesus said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. He did not lie. When you say, Jesus, here I am, it is enough. He loved you so much, He is going to bring you through.
Wow, what an incredible story. You know, they did the right thing, but they suffered depression, post-traumatic stress, anxiety, and those are really real, and they can be debilitating if you're going through it. Well, you need to reach out for help and have someone pray with you. We have counselors standing by right now that would love to do that for you. The number is on your screen, 1-800-700-7000. And just, call right now and ask for prayer if you're going through something similar. They're there to help you. Well, still ahead, time for Pat to answer a few of your biggest questions. One viewer says, I have a close friend who escaped from a satanic cult. I'm amazed that anyone would worship the devil, and I would like to study more about it. Would God think it's okay for me to research Satanism? Your email's coming up, so don't go away.
To see this week's most viewed stories, go to cbn.com.
And welcome back to the 700 Club. Well, Hao is a little boy who suffered from seizures day and night. He would foam at the mouth and often faint. Hao's sickness worried his cousin Ming. She was afraid he'd have a heart attack and die.
Hao Xuan and his cousin Ming had a carefree friendship full of fun and games until Ming heard Hao had heart problems.
Sometimes if I wanted to go for a run, Ming said, "No, you can't do that. It's because Hao is my best friend and I don't want him to have a heart attack."
He got fevers a lot, so I always slept with one eye open to check on him. I was worried he would have a seizure in the middle of the night.
Seizures came night and day.
It was like a time bomb that would explode without warning. He would be doing fine 1 second, and then in a blink of the eye, he would faint. Once he just dropped his spoon and passed out. His arms and legs started twitching, and he foamed at the mouth.
Mrs. Zhao was afraid Hao was dying.
The fear was more horrifying than picturing myself dying. It was like someone was ripping my heart out, and I blamed myself.
Hao Xuan's heart continued to get worse. He could never stay warm, and he caught colds easily.
My heart hurt so much. It felt like there were bad guys living inside there. My mom said I needed surgery, but couldn't afford it.
I looked for ways to make just 10 cents to put towards surgery. We were helpless.
By the age of 7, Hao could no longer go outside.
It was like the world had fallen apart and I had been cut by an axe. He was so skinny and fragile, and his heart trouble got worse as he grew because it couldn't keep up with his body.
That's when CBN arranged for free heart surgery that saved Hao's life. Now, no one can slow him down.
My heart doesn't hurt anymore.
Hao Xuan has changed so much. He's taller and he weighs more, and he even helps other people. CBN's love pushed away my fear and got us through everything.
Now, Hao Xuan and I can be together forever.
Oh, wow. Doesn't that warm your heart? Hal said he felt like bad guys were living in his heart. Because of you, if you're a CBN partner, you helped kick those bad guys out, and now he's a healthy, happy little boy with a great future ahead. If you'd like to help people all over the world, it's so easy to do it. Just go to your phone right now and say, yes, I want to join the 700 Club. It's just 65 cents a day. $20 a month is all it takes to become a CBN partner. And when you do that, we want to bless you back with Pat's brand new teaching called Miracles. Experience God's power in your life. You know, God is the God of miracles. If you need a miracle or you know somebody who does, you need to watch this. This will cause your faith to soar and you will be a believer. We want you to have it. It's our free gift to you when you call right now and join the 700 Club. Well, right now, it is time to bring it on, and Pat is in the hot seat. All right, this question is really interesting. Okay, Marjo, maybe. She says, I have a close friend who escaped from a satanic cult and ritual abuse. As a Christian, I'm bewildered as to why anyone would choose to worship Satan and would like to do some research into the subject, but part of me fears doing this. Would God not want me to learn more about this? On the other hand, how can we defeat an enemy if we turn a blind eye and don't learn more about them and their ways?
Well, Paul says that we're not ignorant of his devices. We know Satan, we know what he does. The Bible also says that he who pursues evil, evil will come to them. So if you get too involved, the next thing you know, some of this stuff can take you. But knowing about the fact we have an enemy, understanding the way he works is not necessarily bad, but you have to be careful that this stuff will begin to obsess you, and then the next thing you know, it will actually, you'll invite the thing that you are afraid of. So just be very, very careful. All I can say is that knowing about the devil, the Apostle Paul said, we're not unmindful of his devices. You understand what he's trying to do. All right?
Amen. All right, Samuel writes in, Adam and Eve chose to eat the bad fruit from the tree that God told them not to eat. Would sin not exist if they had obeyed?
The idea of that whole fruit was, God says, don't eat the fruit. And if you eat it, you're going to die. So every time they saw the tree of good and evil, they said to themselves, eating that fruit is bad, not eating it is good. So they learned good and evil by resisting that particular temptation. But when they finally succumbed because Satan put in their mind that God was withholding something good from them, the devil is a liar. And you know, well, he wants you to have a party, and he wants to keep you from the party. And you'd be having a lot of fun if you just let go and, you know, let it all hang out. I mean, why should you be restrained from all these pleasures? That's the lie of the devil. So he was lying, and the human beings accepted it. Now, would sin have been there? What was sin? Well, sin was going against what God said was good and doing what he said was bad. That's sin. So there would always have been sin, except here's the deal. You know, the old theologian used to call about non posse peccari, and then they said posse non peccari. The idea is you were not able to sin and able not to sin. So after a while, they would have been so established in righteousness that they would have been unable to sin. And if they just resisted long enough. So the question is, would sin have been in the world? Sin's always there. People always want to rebel against God, but you would have been established, Adam and Eve, and then humanity would have been established in that course of conduct. All right.
Wow. Good truth there. All right. Ruth says, I have been a born-again Christian now for 6 years. I know that when we die as Christians, we're supposed to go to heaven. But I'm so afraid that when I stand before the Lord to be judged, he might still decide to send me to hell. How can we be confident of where we're going?
You got to believe the Bible. And read John, I think it's 5:24. He says, he that hears my word and believes on him who sent me has everlasting life and shall not come into the judgment, but is passed from death into life. Got that? That's what it says. So you believe that God is real. You believe that Jesus is who he says he is. You believe that God sent him, and you trust the salvation laid out in the Bible. Now, the Bible also says there is the bema, the judgment seat of Christ, that we will account for the things done in the body. And so there'll be rewards and there'll be some punishment, but not eternal hell. Eternal hell is settled when you come to the Lord. The rest of it is we will live rewards for the bema, the judgment seat of Christ. That's not too confusing. That's the deal. I didn't make the rules. That's the way they are. All right.
All right. Garrity says, I know the Bible says that we are to live as slaves of Christ, and we are not to use our freedom as a cover-up for sin. However, it also says we can't earn our salvation by works. It's a gift from God. So I'm just wondering how to reconcile both truths. If we're to live as slaves to Christ, doesn't that mean doing works? I'm confused.
Well, I'm a slave to the Lord. I belong to him. But I want to please him because I love him. And so he gives me something to do. I want something to do. Well, what would you like me to do, Lord, to please you? Well, I want you to go out and win people to Jesus. Okay, yes, sir. And that's what we do. And we do these not to get to heaven. We don't earn our salvation by works of righteousness. Nobody's going to get saved. It's by faith you're saved, and that is a gift of God. And he's given us a gift, so I'm thankful for the gift, and I want to live my life to show him that I'm grateful for what he's done. And we're not going to earn heaven. There's no way you're going to earn heaven with anything. Well, we leave you with today's Power Minute from Psalm 16. You will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. So for Wendy and all of us, this is Pat Robertson, and we look forward to seeing you again on the 700 Club tomorrow with Zach Williams doing a performance for us, a Grammy-nominated song, Chainbreaker. So we'll see you there. Bye-bye. God bless you.